आपका रिसर्च बहुत है, आपका नॉलेज बहुत है। आप ये जो यूक्रेन में मैटर चला हुआ है और भारत का जो स्टैंड, भारत ने यूएनओ में जो स्टैंड लिया, तो उसके बारे में आप थोड़ी पब्लिक को बताइए प्लीज।
जी, तो भारत ने यूक्रेन पे क्या स्टैंड लिया है? पहले तो हमने तो इंडिया ने क्या स्टैंड लिया है इसमें? अब हमने वी रिफ्यूज टू कंडेम रशिया, पर पहले भी देखिए, जब अमेरिका ने लिबिया पे बमबारी की थी, सीरिया पे बमबारी की थी, इराक का इन्वेजन किया था, तब भी हमने कॉन्डेमनेशन से इनकार कर दिया था। तो नया क्या है? अब कुछ भी नहीं। अब ये लोग चाहते हैं कि हम उनके साथ मिलके रूस को कंडेम करें, जो रूस ने हमारे हमेशा से साथ दिया है, उसको बैठ के कंडेम करें। नॉट हैपनिंग। दूसरा, वो चाहते हैं कि हम ये सैंक्शंस में पार्टिसिपेट करें। ये सैंक्शंस का ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है? ऑब्जेक्टिव तो नहीं, पर रिजल्ट क्या है, नतीजा क्या है? कि रूस एकदम चाइना का एक कॉलोनी बन जाता है, कि दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा जो ऑयल और गैस रिजर्व्स है, सबसे बड़ा गोल्ड रिजर्व है, सबसे बड़ा प्लैटिनम रिजर्व है, सबसे बड़ा नया मिनरल्स का रिजर्व है, वो सब चाइनीज के नीचे आ जाए। फिर वो पूछते हैं, आर यू सीरियस अबाउट टैकलिंग चाइना? भाई, हम कैसे करें? ये तो ऐसे हुआ ना कि ऐसे खाने लगाने के बगैर करके खाना लगाओ करके, ऐसे तो हो नहीं सकता है। तो ये पहले क्या चाह रहे हैं, इन्होंने इतना भी बैठ के नहीं देखा है कि इसका नतीजा क्या है। वो बेसिकली ये बोल रहे हैं कि मैं फैन से टांग के खुदकुशी करने वाला हूं, अगर तुम सचमुच में मेरे से प्यार करते हो, आके मेरे साथ खुदकुशी कमिट करो। भाई, ऐसा तो कोई रिश्ता चलता नहीं है। मे बी अब्यूजिव रिश्ता ऐसा चलता है, पर कोई भी साइकोलॉजिकली जो डैमेज्ड गुड्स नहीं है, उनका रिश्ता तो ऐसे चलता नहीं है। तो आई थिंक हमने जो किया है बिल्कुल सही किया है, कि हम रूस को कंडेम नहीं करेंगे, हम अपना सेल्फ इंटरेस्ट देखेंगे, और हम अपने स्टूडेंट्स को उधर से वापस लाएंगे, बस।
थैंक यू। अभिजीत, आपको लगता है ये युद्ध लंबा चलेगा, तीसरे वर्ल्ड युद्ध की वो बनेगा बहाना के अभी जल्दी एंड हो जाएगा? आपको क्या लगता है?
ये जल्दी एंड होने का भी चांस नहीं है, क्योंकि रूस ने बोला था कि जो नोटैम जारी किया था, नोटिस ऑफ एयर मूवमेंट, 14 मई तक किया था, यानी कि उनको भी लगता है कि 2-3 महीने लगेंगे इसको खत्म होने में। तो होने दीजिए, हमारा तो कुछ इसमें जाता है नहीं ज्यादा, होने दीजिए। लेट द वेस्ट रिंग इटसेल्फ अप। मेरे को तो एक चीज में बहुत मजा आ रहा है कि वेस्ट को इतना गुस्सा आ रहा है, क्योंकि ये वो उल्टा चोर कोतवाल को डांटे वाला सिचुएशन होता है ना। मैं बैठ के देख रहा हूं कि भाई, तुम भी किस किस्म के हिपोक्रेट्स हो। हर दिन आपकी हिपोक्रेसी बढ़े जा रही है, और आपको कोई अंदाजा भी नहीं है कि आप हिपोक्रेट हैं करके। ये एक किस्म से वीरदास का कॉमेडी शो देखने की तरह है। बेचारा वो जोक तो कर नहीं सकता है, कोई भी उसके जोक्स के साथ हंस रहा नहीं है, सब उसके चेहरे देख के हंस रहे हैं। वो बेचारे को समझ में नहीं आती है। तो मैं भी यही किए जा रहा हूँ।
जब भी अमेरिका और ब्रिटेन मिलके इराक पे अटैक करते हैं, लिबिया के अटैक करते हैं, वो जस्टिफाई होता है, और रशिया ये करता है तो वो जस्टिफाई नहीं होता है, क्योंकि ये वेस्ट की अपनी गेम नहीं है। तो आपका उसमें क्या कहने का? वेस्ट को तो बड़ी हिपोक्रेसी है ना, कि अपनी गेम नहीं है तो।
देखिए, वेस्ट की तो हमेशा से ही हिपोक्रेसी रही है ना, कि वो ये नया किस्म का रेसिज्म है, ठीक है ना। जस्ट बिकॉज आपके पास एलजीबीटी सोल्जर्स हैं, या काले सोल्जर्स हैं, या भूरे सोल्जर्स हैं, या पीले सोल्जर्स हैं, या ट्रांससेक्सुअल सोल्जर्स हैं, इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि आपकी कोई ये व्हाइट एक्सेप्शनलिज्म कुछ कम हुई है। तो ये तो हमेशा से ही था। हमको क्यों इतना आश्चर्य हो रहा है कि अभी भी इतने ही रेसिस्ट हैं?
और मुझे लगता है अमेरिका की ये बेवकूफी नहीं है। अमेरिका को चाइना को टैकल करने का, तो रशिया को पार्टनर बना के अच्छी तरह से टैकल कर सकता था अगर चाइना को टैकल करने का। ये तो उसने उल्टा कर दिया, रशिया को चाइना की गोद में बिठा दिया।
क्यों? क्योंकि सबको पता है कि जो अमेरिका का पॉलिटिकल क्लास है, वो एकदम बिक चुका है चाइना के साथ। ऐसे कोई भी सेनेटर या कांग्रेसमैन नहीं होगा जिसका कोई बिजनेस इंटरेस्ट नहीं होगा चाइना में। तो वो वही कर रहे हैं जो चाइना करना चाहता है। चाइना का तो इसमें बहुत ही फायदा होता है ना, क्योंकि चाइना क्या देख रहा है कि आपने एक कंट्री को स्विफ्ट से निकाल दिया तो चाइना का स्विफ्ट, बाकी सब कंट्री फिर चाइना का स्विफ्ट लेंगे। चाइना का अगर स्विफ्ट लेंगे तो वो जो ट्रांसफर करेंसी होता है वो रेनमिनबी हो जाता है। अगर रेनमिनबी ट्रांसफर करेंसी हो जाता है तो नेचुरली वो रिजर्व करेंसी भी हो जाता है। फिर क्या होगा उसका? तो चाइना बैठ के देख रहा है कि भाई मैंने जितना पैसा दिया, जब आप या मैं, जब मनोज जी या नीलेश जी या अभिजीत इन्वेस्टमेंट करते हैं, हम तो देख देख के करते हैं कि भाई 5% मिले, 7% मिले, शायद 10-12% मिले। चाइना ने जो इनको मूंगफली दे रखा है, वो 5 मूंगफली देते हैं तो 5 किलो सोना मिलता है वापस। ऐसा इन्वेस्टमेंट करके रखा है उन्होंने यूएस कांग्रेसमैन में, कि अब जो भी इन्वेस्टमेंट किया है उनको दे हैव गॉट डायरेक्ट एक्सेस नाउ टू द बिगेस्ट ऑयल एंड गैस रिजर्व्स, द बिगेस्ट मिनरल रिजर्व्स, one of the most heavily armed nuclear countries with very competent technology, which is now all open to China.
तो इसका अभिजीत रिपरकशन होगा इंडिया के ऊपर। जो रशिया ने यूक्रेन में किया, चाइना उसको सपोर्ट कर रहा है। कल चाइना अगर हमारे ऊपर करे या ताइवान के ऊपर करेगा तो रशिया तो चाइना को सपोर्ट करेंगे, तो वी विल बी द सफरर ने।
Of course we'll be the sufferer. Of course we'll be the sufferer. और ये प्रॉब्लम है कि हमारा जो सेल्फ इमेज है वो हमारे इंटरेस्ट और हमारे नैरेटिव से नहीं बनता है। अभी भी हम खुद अपने आप को गोरों के दर्पण से देखते हैं।
इस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में एक्चुअली मतलब इफ यू स्टार्ट क्या खोया क्या पाया, ऐसा लगता है कि यूएसए, फ्रांस एंड चाइना ऑफ कोर्स आर major players to gain in the long term, and by some count Russia of course and China and India stand to lose something or the other. I read an analysis from somewhere from one of the commentators, and he has his own reasons. One, I don't necessarily agree or disagree with his reasons, but I wanted to really pick up your brains onto that.
Look, I'm very clear about this. In the end, Europe and America are going to lose, as in lose significant ground. Russia is going to lose big time. The only winner in this conflict is China. China and nobody else. It may be a tactical victory for America and Europe, but it's a strategic loss for them. So best of luck to them. They've chosen this course of action. Best of luck to them.
For USA particularly, in the context that it kind of revitalizes NATO, and in that sense it drives their armament industry and sustains their long-term strategic agenda of being policemen of the world. To that extent they stand to gain somewhat.
So it's like a short-term tactical gain for a strategic loss. ठीक है, you will sell more weapons, you've knocked out Russia from the arms market and things like that. Congratulations to you. But your biggest enemy, China, is only going to go stronger. So what you gain, you've gained in the next 15 to 20 years. After that, China is going to screw you. I've always said democracies destroy themselves. This is the story of Ajatashatru, Amarapali, and the Lichavi Confederacy. है ना, कि वो अजातशत्रु, कई कहते हैं बिंबिसारा था, पर most of the stories I've read say अजातशत्रु, उसने जाके उसके साथ प्यार किया और अमरपाली के साथ प्यार किया, and he sowed the seeds of destruction. When the Magadha army came, the citizens of the Lichavi Confederacy opened their door for the Magadhan army. Right? You look at democracies, Mahajanapadas destroyed themselves. They didn't get conquered. They destroyed themselves. You look at the history of democracies. Athens destroyed itself. All the democracies, they destroyed themselves.
Yeah.
The Roman democracy destroyed itself. Democracies, as a rule, first destroy themselves, and that is what these democracies are doing. Best of luck to them.
No, but does that put then India in the same basket in that sense? Like, we take pride,
but we are already destroying ourselves. You look at how polarized the narrative is. Today the things that Rahul Gandhi says, they're indistinguishable from what Imran Khan says. So I think at some level we've already destroyed ourselves.
And what about like France? Do you think Germany's loss in terms of Germany's fuel dependency on Russia, which then they will obviously need to now pay price for, and their reduced muscle, which after World War at a slow pace, and then particularly after 90s at a much stronger pace, which they have kind of emasculated themselves in terms of their defense spending and building up their equipment. Do you think Germany will have a double whammy and France will emerge as like the engine of Europe?
No, quite the contrary. I think what we're seeing is the re-emergence of Germany. They've just increased their defense budget to $100 billion a year, which is second only to America and China. It's bigger than the Russian defense budget. And you know, with Germany, with its industrial power, which is much greater than France's industrial power, I think Europe will very soon start regretting the fact that they pushed Germany back into armament. Because remember, every time Germany arms itself, it never works out well for anybody. And mind you, this is not a new phenomenon. This is a 2,000-year-old phenomenon. The moment the Romans started using the Germans as mercenaries, it was a done deal that the Germans were going to come and destroy you. The moment you created the Holy Roman Empire, which was technically the Holy German Empire because it was based entirely out of Germany, it pretty much destroyed the rest of Europe in one way or another. The moment you have the Teutonic Knights come up, it destroys every country around them to some extent, well, damages every country around them. Germany rearming at any point of time in the last 2,000 years has never been good for anybody, especially for Europe. So you know what? I wish German rearmament on Europe. I curse Europe with German rearmament. Like we say, Sauputravati Bhava. Now you tell me what kind of a blessing is Sauputravati Bhava? एक औरत को अगर 100 पुत्र पैदा करने हो, बेचारी का हालत क्या होगा?
वो तो मर ही जाने वाली
है। हाँ, तो वो तो मर ही जाएगी. तो I bless Europe. German rearmament Bhava.
Now, tell me, Abhijit, in terms of Russia, like Russian, like last time I visited Russia, मेरे को एक sense जो वहाँ पे आया, the Russians are in some sense fiercely proud people, which comes across if you visit Russia and talk to anybody there. And when you say that a country of 14 million people, notwithstanding their geography and their mineral wealth, but a country of only 14 million people facing up to, you know, the whole pressures of the Cold War, that means they are a very, very resilient kind of a nation. And then suddenly to be forced into a situation, now historical, they may have a strategic alliance with China, more so now because China becomes their only investment vehicle and China becomes their only market for fuel and their armaments. But do you think that marriage will sustain, or it will like remain a Stalin-Mao kind of a axis where you are hiding a gun behind and you are like shaking hands?
See, it's a fantastic model for China. China loves these things called free radicals, which are extremely high risk accepting and highly disruptive. So they love using North Korea against South Korea and Japan. They love using, Burma against ASEAN. They love using Pakistan against India and Afghanistan. Now they've got a very big Pakistan called Russia. Now imagine if Pakistan and North Korea as two outcast states cause so much international disruption. Imagine how much disruption Russia can cause. So China, I can tell you, every Chinese person I've spoken to is absolutely thrilled because they've now got what Lashkar-e-Toiba and Hizbul Mujahideen are to Pakistan and what Pakistan is to China. Today, Russia is going to become to China. That said, we need to understand the Russians are extraordinarily pain accepting. Remember, in World War II, they lost 3 crore people. And they still won the war after that. अभी जो 3 करोड़ लोग होके सरेंडर नहीं करता है, वो क्या इकोनॉमिक सैंक्शंस के वजह से सरेंडर करेगा, आपको लगता है?
नहीं, कभी नहीं करेगा वो। They are
कभी नहीं
fiercely
करेगा।
They are, and they're extremely fatalistic. They enjoy being fatalistic. It's almost like हम बात करते हैं कि मेरा बेटा शादी हुआ और उसको 50 करोड़ मिले दहेज में, और मेरी बेटी की शादी में मैंने पूरा रोड को सोने से पेव कर दिया था. Russians are like, मेरा बेटा उस वॉर में मरा था, मेरी बहन उस वॉर में मरी थी. ये उनका पार्टी गॉसिप होता है.
I notice that they really want to kind of scratch their wounds and feel,
Yeah.
joy, like it's like intoxication in that.
Yeah, they're a very. I think the Russian psyche is extremely masochistic. And when you're a masochist, the pain only excites you even more.
Yes. I distinctly felt that when I was in Russia, that brings out in a way the in some way the best in them. They can do that best more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And if Cold War didn't kill them, at least the sanctions won't kill them surely. But tell me, from Indian perspective, with China establishing bases in Sri Lanka and Myanmar, and Pakistan more or less in their pocket, and Russia warming up to Pakistan. Imran was sitting in Russia the other day only, and Russia's capacity to extend its friendly overtures to India limited, especially in case of a conflict with China or its proxy Pakistan. What could be the options really for India in terms of, besides building its economy and military, which is a no-brainer, what else India could be doing?
See, the thing is, it's no longer just good enough to build your economy and things like that. We need to be taking this proactively. Unfortunately, no government takes it seriously. They take elections more seriously than they do the growth of the country. It requires very few steps to fix the defense indigenization of your country. वो भी नहीं करेंगे. You now need an alternative to the SWIFT system. वो भी नहीं करेंगे. You need to find, after what has happened with Google and Facebook and Twitter and all of that, and YouTube and Russia, you need to have forced, you need to ram through a data localization in parliament. वो भी नहीं करेंगे. तो क्या करेंगे ये लोग? See, I don't think people get this, but our government is as compromised to foreign interests as America's political class is to Chinese. So they do nothing. They don't think ahead. अभी देख लीजिए, 8 साल मोदी गवर्नमेंट में रहे हैं. 8 साल में आप अभी तक वेस्टर्न प्रोपेगेंडा को काउंटर कर पाए हो?
No, not really. Not
जो
at all.
पीएमओ का जो मीडिया टीम है, वो तो चपरासी बनने का लायक नहीं है. उनको जाके पीआर बना दिया है, पीएमओ में बिठा दिया है. इससे बेहतर तो मेरा कुत्ता भौंकना, मैं कुत्ता को बुला के भौंकाऊं, वो बेहतर पीआर करेगा आपके लिए. कम से कम मेरा कुत्ता तो जानता है कि किसको काटना है और किसको चाटना है. ये तो वो भी नहीं जानते. काहे का पीआर करेंगे ये लोग?
नहीं, ये बात आपने बिल्कुल सही की कि हमारे यहाँ जो फंडामेंटल टास्क ऑफ नेशन बिल्डिंग, वी हैव टेकन दैट टू in a way, like a kind of a thing, a gas cylinder or this or that. Now that may help you win elections, but that does not really build a nation in that sense, in terms of its strategic interest. It kind of might be doing good to some poor, it might help you win elections, but it, like the very critical things, SWIFT payments.
हम ना, जब हम भला करने की सोचते हैं, हम कभी भी ये नहीं सोचते हैं कि मेरा बेटा अगला अंबानी बने. हम बस ये सोचते हैं कि कल इसके लिए 5 स्टार बार होना चाहिए. कल जब ये चोकोबार मांगता है, मैं चोकोबार खरीद के दूं. कल मेरी तरह वो चल के स्कूल ना जाए, मैं उसको कम से कम एक मारुति सियाज या एक मारुति बलेनो दूं. क्यों? हम क्यों नहीं सोच रहे कि कल जब वो स्कूल जाए, वो मैं स्कूल ही खरीद लूं? हम क्यों नहीं सोचते कि कल जब वो स्कूल जाए, वो रोल्स रॉयस में जाएगा? नहीं. हम बहुत ये शॉर्ट लेवल, नियर टर्म टैक्टिकल थिंकिंग करते रहते हैं. इट डजंट वर्क इन द लॉन्ग टर्म. You have to dream. See, or when we dream big, it's completely unrealistic. आप बोल रहे हो आत्मनिर्भर भारत, विश्व गुरु, देखिए इतने मिनरल्स के साथ भी रूस क्या आत्मनिर्भर निकला? नहीं, हम तो उससे भी कम आत्मनिर्भर हैं। पर कोई देख के रूस के साथ जो हुआ अभी, वो कोई भी, आर यू सीइंग अ सिंगल इंडियन इंट्रोस्पेक्ट एंड आस्क, भाई अगर ये लोग आत्मनिर्भर नहीं हो सकते हैं, हम कैसे आत्मनिर्भर हो सकते हैं? नहीं? सब बोलेंगे $5 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी, $5 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी। अरे भाई कहां जाओगे $5 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी के लिए? कहां से ग्रोथ आने वाला है $5 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी के लिए? कभी सोचा है? ये बस मैं बोल रहा हूं। सी, इट्स लाइक मी सेइंग ऑन दिस प्रोग्राम, मैं अगला अंबानी बनूंगा, उसके लिए मैं कुछ कर रहा हूं क्या? नहीं, मैं बस बैठ के अपना चाय पी रहा हूँ, सिगरेट फूंक रहा हूँ और फोन देख रहा हूँ और 5 ट्रिलियन मैं अगला अंबानी बनूंगा, बस। ऐसे तो अंबानी कोई बनता नहीं है।
बट टेल मी, जैसे विद आवर हमारी इंडो रशियन स्ट्रेटेजिक एक्सेस व्हिच काइंड ऑफ इट सर्वाइव्स टिल डेट एट लीस्ट थ्योरेटिकली, बट वी नाउ नो दैट उसकी जो ताकत है वो कहीं ना कहीं कॉम्प्रोमाइज है. What strategic alliances we could build? Now, USA, of course, is an easy answer. But what else we could be doing? I mean, USA, with its pants in many fire, it will do whatever it will do, and very little we can control there. What else we could be doing?
So, there's technically, we, as a very great man once said, you never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. So far, every opportunity we've had, we've missed the boat. You had an opportunity to industrialize and get strong, we missed the boat. And हर चीज का blame है democracy की वजह से नहीं कर पाते. There's very little you can do. Our options are almost non-existent. One is you get into manufacturing like China, but then no government will do that. Because they'll say, देखो एक फार्म रिफॉर्म के लिए क्या सब हुआ. अगर आप इंडस्ट्रियल रिफॉर्म और लेबर रिफॉर्म और लैंड रिफॉर्म करोगे, आपको लगता है कुछ ऐसे ही चला जाएगा? And then if you shoot people to get to this thing, the same Western press will be after you, and the same West will impose sanctions. So we've tied ourselves up in for all our talk. वो कहते हैं ना कि लिफ्ट में जब कोई पाद मारता है, वही बंदा होता है जो बाकी सब पे इल्जाम लगाता है. तो हम उसकी तरह हैं जो इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ कर नहीं पाए हैं, पर बाकी सब पे इल्जाम लगाते हैं कि भाई तुम हमारा ये कर रहे हो, हमको ग्रो करने से रोक रहे हो.
Abhijit, in Putin, Russia has a very strong leader. And in Biden, America has a weakest leader. I think so far American president, Biden is the weakest. If Trump would have been there, do you think his answer would have been different than Biden's answer to Putin?
I think if you had Trump, you wouldn't have even gotten into this situation, because he wouldn't have given the Ukrainians any false hope. This situation has arisen because, remember, the Ukrainians were part and parcel of the Russia dossier used against Trump. Right? So he was not inclined to help them. Basically, what changed was that Biden came to power, and because Biden himself and Biden's son, because of their company ties to Burisma, which is the Ukrainian company, where they got paid heavily, Ukraine somehow thought that it can get away with a lot right now, and it is going to get special privileges right now. And so it amped up its entire rhetoric. And it was never checked by Biden because he's compromised to the Ukrainians. So what ended up happening was that he basically encouraged this slow and steady drift. It became a much more rapid drift after Biden came towards NATO, which is what brought this current situation on us. And mind you, there will be if the Russians flatten Kiev and kill everybody in there, there'll be nobody happier than Joe Biden, because all the evidence of his corruption with the Ukrainians will be lost. That's the way it goes.
Right. Ukraine voted against motion in the UN, which was about countering Nazism, right? Then Putin said that Ukraine needs the Nazifications. What do you think of this?
No, I don't know about the UN motion, but I know that Ukraine, even though the president and the prime minister are Jews, the ultra-nationalist faction that they're cozy with includes open, outright, in-your-face Nazis. Okay, I want everybody to Google C-14 and the Azov battalion. These people are something like 12 to 14,000, depending on what source you look at, ultra-right hardcore Nazis whose sign is, a variation of the German Schutzstaffel, the double S symbol morphed around, that they use as their logo, which was absorbed into the Ukrainian National Guard. They were actually made an agent of the state. It was the same Ukrainian nationalists that burnt alive 46 people in Odessa in 2014. We know who did it. Not one of them has been arrested. Not one of them has been prosecuted. These same National Guard battalions of Nazis have in the last 8 years, gone and killed something like about 14,000 people in Donetsk and Luhansk and all those places. Zelensky never stopped them. In fact, from some of the early decisions that Zelensky took, it seems that these Nazis had a full-on veto on what Zelensky could or could not do. So, him being a Jew and his prime minister being a Jew doesn't make their hands any less dirty from Nazi blood. Remember, when the Holocaust happened, there was a whole set of people called the Judenrat. They were the Jews chosen in concentration camps to run the concentration camps, and they were usually much more loyal to the Germans than even the Germans were, because they wanted to survive. There were 40 Finnish officers on the Finnish front, because Finland never acted, even though they were allied to Germany, out of compulsion, because Russia invaded them. They were compelled to fight with the Germans. The Germans gave them iron crosses, as war honors, and they refused it to a last man, saying, "Bhai, tere se to main kuch nahi lunga." But that wasn't the case with the Judenrat. So I'm sorry, this notion that somehow Jews can't collaborate with Nazis is not accurate.
No. See, that is pretty much like the British Army in the colonial times, pretty much comprised of Indian soldiers shooting happily, merrily at Indian people. Jallianwala Bagh bullets were not fired by Goras really. Bullets were fired pretty much by Indians. So the capacity of the collaborators emerging from the oppressed is definitely there. It may not happen in all societies, in all nations, but it can happen in the Jews. It can jolly well happen in India also.
Yeah, and we need to remember that this man is not running a Jewish state. He's a self-interested politician who is running Ukraine to the political realities of Ukraine. So it's he tries to hide everything by claiming he's a Jew. But honestly, if mind you, these battalions hate Jews as well. In fact, the current Canadian Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, her grandfather was one of these people, was a Nazi. His whole thing, a Ukrainian Nazi. His whole job was to go around writing op-eds and things like that would enrage people to go into anti-Russian and anti-Jewish pogroms. She hides her history. Anybody who tries digging it up, she claims it's Russian disinformation or Russian misinformation. When she's actually gone out of her way to suppress that information, and she's never been able to answer a question about it. And mind you, the West had no great hatred of Nazis. Okay, the CDU, which rules Germany for a long time, was essentially the reformed Nazi party. Okay, all the Nazi scientists and scholars and people like that were absorbed by the West. The American space program is the brainchild of Werner von Braun, who was an out-and-out Nazi. So let's, we shouldn't. Putin is absolutely right when he says he's going into denazify Ukraine.
बेटा थैंक यू वेरी मच और आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. लोग आपको बहुत चाहते हैं, डिमांड आती रहती है कि अभिजीत को लेके आइए, अभिजीत को लेके आइए. पीपल लव यू.
So please subscribe, hit the like button, comment also, that helps the algorithm, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abhijit.
Thank you, Abhijit.
Thank you.